The Dallas Cowboys were ready for 1970, but head coach Tom Landry went into the season with a considerable problem. His regular quarterback, Craig Morton, had not performed well in preseason, and he would have to choose between Morton and Roger Staubach to start the year. Defensively, however, the Cowboys seemed as strong as ever. Their front four and linebackers were the same seven that had taken Dallas to the Eastern Division title in '69, and Dallas looked forward with confidence to 1970. The Detroit Lions, on the other hand, were perhaps more well-known for their performance in a different arena, as they mocked and satirized both themselves and their head coach, Joe Schmidt, in the movie version of George Plimpton's Paper Lion.
All right, now, before we go any further, I think we should take first things first. And in that order, we should hear a word from our beloved coach, Joe Schmidt. Joe! Good evening, fine. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about discipline. I want discipline. Bill Ford wants discipline. My assistants want discipline, and I'm going to get discipline. I want to talk about some of the pleasantries on our ball club. Fine.
On the field, the Lions in '69 had established themselves as contenders for this season, though they were in the coldest and toughest division in football, the NFC Central. Quarterback Bill Munson would lead their offense, and young Greg Landry would back him up. But Joe Schmidt had built his team on defense, and this is what Motor City fans thrive on. Like the Cowboys, the Lions entered the 1970 season determined to give Detroit a winner and their first champion in 13 years. As the Artful Dodger. Coach Tom Landry had taken a gamble starting Staubach instead of Craig Morton, but Morton had been in a preseason passing slump, and he, along with Bob Hayes, had been benched. Staubach scrambles left eagles strewn all over Philadelphia's artificial turf. But it was the Dallas defense that kept the Cowboys in the game, and they eked out an unimpressive opening day win, 17-7. The Cowboys' second opponent was the New York Giants, and they too gave Dallas a tough fight, both figuratively and literally. The Cowboys' secondary has three All-Pros, Herb Adderley, Carnell Green, and Mel Renfro. But it was the fourth member, free agent Cliff Harris, number 43, that twice set up the Cowboys' offense with interceptions. Dallas's razzle-dazzle big play attack then went into action and scored 28 points in the second half. Bob Hayes was back, and Dallas won its second game, 28-10. But against the St. Louis Cardinals, the Cowboys suffered their first defeat, as Roger Staubach and the offense could do nothing against the Big Red defense. Tom Landry would now make the first of many personnel changes that would drastically affect the Cowboys season. Exit number 12, enter number 14 for the Cowboys' fourth game. Craig Morton looked good, but the conditions were impossible, and it was again the Cowboys' defense under coach Ernie Stautner that won the game, shutting out the Falcons 13-0. So through the first four games, it was obvious that their defense was way ahead of their offense. But Dallas was in first place with a 3-1 record. The Detroit Lions went through their first four games in much the same way. Their opener was a 40-0 shutout of the Packers, in which the Lions' defense was flawless. All-Pro Lem Barney, number 20, led a secondary that was to finish the year tied for the interception lead. Bill Munson started the season at quarterback, but it was the running attack led by number 42, Altie Taylor, that spearheaded at their offense. In fact, with the game out of reach, Greg Landry accidentally ran a quarterback sneak 76 yards, the longest NFC run of the year, and the longest line run in 20 years when Bob Hunchy Hornschmeyer went 85 against these same Packers. It was a big opening day win for Detroit. Against the Cincinnati Bengals, the defense again did not allow a touchdown. But the big play was a controversial punt return by Lem Barney that sent the Lions on their way to a 38-3 victory. The Bengals were the first of 4 division champions the Lions would face this season, as they had one of the toughest schedules in all of pro football. The Lions continued to roll in their third game against the Bears. Though they spotted Chicago a 7-0 halftime lead, Dick LeBeau's interception set up the passes of Bill Munson to all-pro tight end Charlie Sanders, number 88. Munson was using the pass as a stiletto rather than a sword to complement his powerful ground game. And by game's end, Detroit had scored 28 points in the second half to win their third in a row. The Lions were finally stopped in Washington as their defense failed to contain the passing of Sonny Jurgensen and the receiving of Charlie Taylor. However, like Dallas, Detroit had finished the first part of their season with a 3-1 record tied for their division lead. Entered the second part of their season 3-1, but now had to face the Vikings and Chiefs in succession. Craig Morton was having problems passing, and the Vikings gave Dallas their worst beating in history, mainly on the strength of Dallas's inability to sustain a drive. Against the Chiefs, Tom Landry had to counteract Len Dawson's offense with one of his own. So he inserted rookie Dwayne Thomas, number 33, for the injured Walt Garrison, and Thomas came through beautifully. Thomas gave the Cowboys a running attack for their first time this season, thus making more effective the Cowboys' deep passing game. Bob Hayes was still the world's fastest human in cleats, but it was really the Cowboys' defense that was the difference in this victory over the Chiefs. A victory that seemingly gave evidence of the Cowboys' all-around ability and potency. But against the Eagles, Dallas laid open its weaknesses. Although they won the game, their only offense was the bomb. And if their opponents could gear defenses against it, Dallas could be had. In their 8th game against the Giants, Dallas was had. Coach Landry called it a general breakdown, and it was obvious that Dallas's only real weapon, literally, was the bomb. And this wouldn't be enough. The Giants won by stopping Calvin Hill in the ground game, and by not allowing Morton time to throw. The Cowboys fell 1 game behind in their division. Tom Landry was justifiably concerned with his team's inconsistency, and his worst fears were borne out against the division-leading Cardinals. The Cowboys were pathetic in every phase of the game and suffered a humiliating 38-0 defeat to St. Louis. In their last 3 games, they had shown an inability to move the ball, which forced their defense to play under pressure from the first quarter on, often giving up touchdowns due to sheer exhaustion. Dallas had hit bottom. Now 5-4. Dreams of a division title turned to thoughts of loneliness and empty stadiums. Like the Cowboys, Joe Schmidt's Detroit Lions suffered breakdowns in the second part of their season, although they started well enough by soundly defeating the Cleveland Browns. 5 interceptions were what beat the Browns, 2 of them going for touchdowns. But there were indications of an offensive slowdown in the Motor City. Detroit's offense was again ineffective against the Bears, as Dick Butkus and company always give their enemies an uphill road to climb. The Lions were indeed lucky to come away with a 16-10 victory, fashioned mainly on a clutch defense that made the breaks. Kicker Earl Mann booted 4 field goals to provide the margin of difference. But as Joe Schmidt said, the Lions took a physical beating and played poorly. 1 week later, Bill Munson fell prey to a Minnesota Viking team that intercepted 3 of his passes and dealt Detroit their second defeat of the year. Munson had thrown only 1 interception the entire season till this game. He began forcing his throws against the tough Vikings and was burned doing so 30-20. Only a monk still searching for the secret of life in the Himalayas doesn't know what happened to Detroit and New Orleans. Down by 1 with 2 seconds left, the Saints' Tom Dempsey kicked the ball 63 yards through the uprights and into immortality. It was the first time since 1968 Detroit had lost 2 in a row, and they now had to play the Vikings again. Joe Schmidt wondered what fate next had in store for his team against the Vikings. The Lions lost the game in many different aspects. Craig Landry almost lost his head. Receiver Larry Walton lost his senses and was lost for most of the day. And Detroit lost the battle. Trailing by 3 with 1 minute to play, the Vikings drove downfield and won the game. The Lions, like the Cowboys, finished the second part of the season poorly, and with a 5-4 record had very little hope of ever making the playoffs. With a 5-4 record, Dallas began the last part of the season at Washington, and Coach Landry inserted Duane Thomas for Calvin Hill. It proved to be another brilliant personnel change by Landry, as the rookie from West Texas State led his team to a big win over the Redskins. Mark Washington's 100-yard kickoff return also helped. With 4 losses, the Cowboys had to win every game from here on. Perhaps this pressure is the reason that the Cowboys now began playing all phases of the game extremely well. Tom Landry's theory seemed to be correct. He claims that in the past, Dallas always peaked too early because of an easy division race and was flat by playoff time. But in 1970, the Cowboys had far from peaked and were just now starting to gain momentum. Next came the Packers. While Ray Nitschke ran for fun, Bart Starr ran for his life, and Dallas had a 16-3 victory. This marked the first game in which Coach Landry called all the plays from the sidelines, and he did so from here on. Dallas continued their impossible task against Washington with a 34-0 shutout. The combination of Duane Thomas and Walt Garrison, number 32, seemed to be a perfect blend of a ground attack that would finish as the NFC's best. Craig Morton was now executing well, faking beautifully, and throwing even better, both long and short. And Bob Hayes continued to dazzle. Hayes had come out of Landry's doghouse early in the year to have one of his greatest seasons ever. Hayes and Dallas's big play offense were not needed against the Cleveland Browns. Number 74 All-Pro Bob Lilly led Dallas to a 6-2 victory in the mud and muck at Cleveland. It was another must victory, their 4th in a row, but they still had to beat Houston in their final game to make the playoffs. By the Houston game, it was clear that Dallas was now playing at its peak, and their final game was no contest. Dallas's front 4 pressured the quarterback all day, but the game belonged to Craig Morton and Bob Hayes. Morton threw 5 touchdown passes, 4 to Hayes, and the defense did not allow a touchdown for the 4th straight week. With the Giants' loss to the Rams, the Dallas Cowboys were Eastern Division champions for the 5th year in a row. Their season needing help from any source. Landry had replaced Munson and was throwing well while the Lions' defense continued to give its offense the ball and led Detroit to a 28-7 victory over the 49ers, the first of 4 straight leaders Detroit had to face. Then on Thanksgiving Day, the Oakland Raiders came to Detroit. From the opening kickoff, it looked like the Lions were thinking more of their dinner than the game. The Raiders jumped off to a quick 14-0 lead. But Greg Landry did not lose his poise and did not deviate from his game plan. Behind the brilliant running and receiving of number 24, Mel Farr, the Lions turned the game and their season right around. The Lions line opened the holes for Taylor and Farr, and Farr led a comeback that tied the score at 14. But the big play of the game was a 3rd down pass from Landry to reserve receiver Chuck Hughes, number 85, as the Lions would have the bench strength to counter injuries. Hughes' catch led to 2 more incredible catches by tight end Charlie Sanders, and the Lions had their biggest win of the year, 28-14. Charlie Winner's Cardinals were the 3rd straight division leader Detroit next faced, and Detroit sent Winner home a loser, 16-3. The Lions' defense was superb. They would finish as the NFC's best against the run and 2nd best overall. Lem Barney had been burned early in the year, but was now making the big play when it most mattered. While on offense, the Lions' running attack was devastating and would finish 2nd to Dallas on the year. So it was on to Los Angeles and the Monday night game with the Rams. The game started well for Detroit, but on their first scoring drive, they lost Mel Farr with a shoulder separation. Depth, however, is the key to a champion, and the Lions once again exhibited as Steve Owens took over for Farr and led the Lions to this crucial victory. Owens is one in a long list of young draft choices that Joe Schmidt had parlayed into a contender. Schmidt's skill and patience to draft well and develop his youth has been remarkable. The Rams kept the game close, however, by Gabriel's bombs to Jack Snow, but the Lions let them cross the goal line only twice. This was due to the play of the line linebackers who consistently shut off the draws, screens, and short flips to the backs. Linebackers Wayne Walker, Mike Lucci, and number 53, Paul Newmoff, were the keys to this big win for Detroit. A win that made them 9-4. A win that proved how strong the Lions really were. And a win that kept their playoff hopes alive. All Detroit watched the Lions' last game of the year. They watched young Greg Landry continue to perform like a veteran under pressure. But as the Cowboys' last game belonged to Morton and Hayes, this game belonged to Lem Barney. Barney, Farr, Taylor, Eddy, Owens, McCullough, Sanders, Landry, Newmoff. These are the draft picks Joe Schmidt has integrated with his veterans to form a perfect blend of wisdom and raw talent. A blend that shut out Green Bay 20-0 and moved the Lions into the playoffs. Their impossible dream come true. The Lion fans went wild. It was an interesting contrast to the scene at Dallas the same day, whose fans had come to expect the division winner. It is perhaps the only contrast between these two great teams, for the parallels between the two are amazing. Both have similar records, similar seasons, and similar styles of play. Both came back from near elimination, and both are seeking their first Super Bowl. It's a shame only one can make it.